All right, let's talk about economics. And I want you to forget the boring graphs and the confusing jargon from school. We're going to strip this thing down to the bare essentials, the brutal, sometimes hilarious, and honestly often terrifying rules that are secretly running your life. So let's just dive right in.
It all starts with something so simple. You're a person and you want things. You want food, you want a place to live, maybe you want a phone that isn't 5 years old. It's just human nature. And right there, that's the catch. That's the whole problem in a nutshell. There just isn't enough of all that stuff to go around for everyone who wants it. Not enough beachfront property, not enough Teslas, not enough anything, really. And that one simple, frustrating fact, well, that's why economics even exists.
This fundamental conflict, it has a name. It's called scarcity. And it's just the cold, hard truth that our wants are infinite, but the world's resources are very finite. We can't have it all. And because of that, we are all forced, every single day, to make choices. That's the game.
So, okay, if life is this giant game of managing scarcity, you gotta know the rules, right? And trust me, they are not always what you think they are. But once you see them, you'll start seeing them absolutely everywhere.
The first rule is maybe the most important. It's called opportunity cost. You can think of it as the ghost of the choice you didn't make. Because for every single thing you say yes to, you are by definition saying no to every other possible thing you could have done with that time or money. There is no free lunch, ever. Every single choice has a cost.
Think about it right now. By choosing to listen to me, you are actively choosing not to be watching funny cat videos, or taking a nap, or finally calling your mom back. That's your opportunity cost in this very moment. I really hope we're making it a worthwhile trade.
So you might be wondering, how do billions of people making their own individual choices not just result in complete and utter chaos? Well, the secret ingredient is incentives. You have to forget about good intentions. What really matters is that people respond to rewards and consequences. It's that simple. When the price of something goes up, that's a signal to sellers. Hey, make more of this. When the price goes down, it's a signal to buyers. Hey, now's a good time to buy. And that constant tension, that tug of war, that's the engine that runs the whole global economy.
Now, this constant push and pull of incentives creates something pretty incredible when you think about it. It creates this invisible messaging system that coordinates the actions of literally billions of people without anyone being in charge. And this whole system is guided by one thing: the truth-telling power of a price.
You know, there's a famous story about this. When the Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev was visiting Britain, he asked Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher a question. He looked at the bustling city of London and asked her, "How do you do it? Who is in charge of making sure millions of people here get fed every single day?"
And her answer was as simple as it was profound. She said, "I don't. Prices do." I mean, just think about that for a second. There's no central food planner. If people in London suddenly decide they love avocados, the price of avocados creeps up a tiny bit. That tiny price change is like a flare shot into the sky that a farmer thousands of miles away in Mexico sees. It tells him, hey, they want more avocados over there. You can make a profit. So he sends more avocados. It's magic. And that's the key takeaway here. A high price isn't the problem. The price is just the messenger. And it's the only messenger telling you the brutally honest truth about how much of something there is versus how many people actually want it. And this brings us to the dark humor section of our show. Because what happens when we don't like the truth that prices are telling us? What happens when we decide to shoot the messenger? Well, it turns out the road to ruin is paved with really good intentions. Let's start with a goal that sounds great on the surface. It's 2008 in Maryland. The state needs more cash. And this idea starts floating around that sounds just perfect. Let's just raise taxes on all the millionaires. What could go wrong? On paper, the math looked awesome. By bumping up the tax rate on their richest residents, they projected they'd rake in an extra $106 million a year. Seemed like a no-brainer. Problem solved, right? Except, yeah, it wasn't. See, people respond to incentives. And in just a couple of years, a full third of those millionaires had just left. They moved out of state. So instead of gaining over $100 million, Maryland's tax revenue actually dropped by $257 million. The people, their businesses, their jobs, poof, gone. You see this exact same tragic comedy play out with things like rent control in New York City. The promise always sounds noble.
affordable housing for all. But by completely ignoring the price signal, the reality that economics delivers is a nightmare. You get chronic housing shortages, landlords can't afford to maintain their buildings, so they start to rot. It creates this totally insane situation where there are literally 4 times as many empty, rent-controlled apartments sitting vacant as there are homeless people in the city. It's absurd. And the pattern is just tragically predictable, no matter where you look. When you force prices to be too low, like Zimbabwe did with food, you get massive shortages. Food literally vanished from the stores because farmers went broke trying to sell it, so crops just rotted in the fields. But when you force prices to be too high, like India did with wheat to help farmers, you get a giant surplus. We're talking 11 million tons of wheat rotting in government warehouses while people starved. You break the signal, you break the whole system. So we've seen how ignoring these basic rules on a huge scale leads to absolute disaster. But the problem, it starts way smaller. In fact, it starts right inside our own skulls. See, a lot of old school economics has a tiny, fatal flaw. It assumes that we're all rational little robots. But we're not. We are walking, talking bundles of glitches and biases. The pain of losing $20 hurts way more than the joy of finding $20 feels good. That's loss aversion. Your brain would almost always rather have $5 right now than $50 next year. That's hyperbolic discounting. If you see everyone else panic buying toilet paper, you'll feel a deep, primal urge to do it too. That's herd mentality. And that horrible movie you're still watching 2 hours in, that's you honoring a bad decision just because you already made it, the sunk cost fallacy. We are predictably and beautifully irrational creatures.
So, after all this, what's the big takeaway? It's actually pretty simple. Understanding these core ideas, it might not make you a millionaire, but it will give you a kind of superpower. It will make you incredibly difficult to fool. You'll start to see right through the empty promises of politicians, you'll spot the tricks advertisers use, and you'll even start to catch the irrational little lies your own brain tells you. Ultimately, economics forces you to see the world and your own life for what it is, a constant series of trade-offs. And that brings me to a final question for you to chew on. Economics teaches us that your most valuable resource is your time. It's finite. So every hour you spend trying to fix one of your weaknesses is an hour you can't spend sharpening one of your strengths. The question is, what are you doubling down on? The choice and its opportunity cost is all yours.